In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build a quick and easy requisitions dashboard using Microsoft Excel and Power BI. And this dashboard will allow you to record purchase requests as you receive them, and then monitor and follow up on those purchase requests throughout the entire procure-to-pay process. And the Power BI portion of the dashboard will allow you to query the requests by different dimensions. So you could see all requests for specific projects, or very quickly and easily change this so that you're seeing all the requests that came through a specific person on your team or a specific department, or even if you wanted to see requests between two periods of time, you could do that as well. As a procurement professional, staying organized is absolutely critical. You're often getting requests for items from different departments, and these might be coming to you by way of an email or a phone call or a text message, or even a physical spec document that someone might hand to you. So recording all of this information and having some system that allows you to monitor and keep up with this information very quickly is very important. And this simple dashboard can help you do just that. So I think what I'll do first is demonstrate the finished product to you. And then you can decide for yourself whether this is something you want to spend your time learning how to build with me throughout the rest of this video. So just for some context, I work in landscape construction, and our purchasing is quite varied. So we buy items that go directly into the product, we buy consumables, we buy perishables, we buy machinery, we rent machinery, and we also make arrangements with subcontractors for different types of work. So this dashboard allows me to keep all of that organized, and I can summarize it in different ways that is helpful to my team. So I think what I'm going to do first is I'll just explain the columns. Okay, and then we'll go back to square one and we'll build this from scratch. I'll start by explaining the status column. So in this column, the cells are a drop-down menu, and depending on how you status the purchase request, the line changes color. So if I mark something as being received, the line will turn green. Or if I mark it as something that is ordered or I've issued a PO for, the line will be blue. Or if there's some special case and I want to mark it other, for example, a purchase that ended up not happening or something like that, I can code it as other and it gets the line purple. And what that allows is when I'm scrolling through all of the purchases that have come in over the past few weeks, I can very clearly see the status of the different items in the company's purchasing pipeline. So it's a very, very key column for the dashboard. Now I'll just walk you through the other columns really quickly here. The first one is date logged. So of course that's the date that the request was issued to me, the project that it's relevant to, the PO number, if there is one, the supplier, the person who made the request. So this would be a person from my team who asked for the item or service, a description of the item, and I tend to keep this faithful to what would appear on the PO. So this is typically the language that the supplier uses to describe their own product. That would appear here. Notes is my area where I keep a journal of the purchase, and I date any changes or updates or any other relevant information to that request. That's all here. And this ends up being very key to me when I'm talking to my team members and giving them updates about items. So what sometimes happens, especially in the case of more complicated purchases, is a few weeks will go by and then the team member that made the original request will come and ask you for an update. And if I've been keeping a very clear journal for that particular request, it's very easy for me to just copy and paste what's in this cell and send that to the team member, and then they're completely up to date on what's happening with regards to that request. Status we talked about. When expected, this cell records the date that the supplier said the product would or service would be delivered, and then the actual delivery date I record when it does arrive to the company. And if there's a discrepancy here, then obviously there's something that you need to follow up with the supplier. The next few columns are just a checklist to ensure I'm communicating information about the purchase to the relevant stakeholders. So the first column is whether or not the information has been sent to the supplier. This is typically whether or not the PO has been sent to the supplier. It allows me just to make sure that that is a step that has been completed. The second column is a SAS that we use on our operations side within the company, and I upload, it's usually a PO, but any information relevant to the purchase to this SAS, and this makes it visible to everyone in the field on the operations side. So it's very critical that that step gets completed. The third is just for the company's legacy recording of purchases. We have a shared intranet, and anything relevant to the purchase needs to be saved there. So that's just a checklist for that. And then finally is just there's a project summary page that I need to ensure purchase requests and completed purchases are logged within. So it's just a quick checklist to make sure that these items have been completed. The next column monitors any items that are going to be returned from us to the supplier. So these could of course be rented items such as machinery or equipment, but it could also be things like pallets. So with some suppliers, we have an arrangement that if we return the wood pallets to them, we get a credit. And one way to make sure that I'm keeping up with that is to log how many pallets are in each order here. And then it just gives me a quick visual so I can make sure that I'm following up on that down the road. And then the next 10 columns are just a snapshot of what's happening over the next 2 weeks. And this is where I log deliveries and give myself a quick visual as to where they're going and what kind of delivery it is. So if it's a green box, this is a perishable item. It's plants in my case. And because we do a lot of drop shipping at my company, I will write in the location that it's going to. So I can very quickly see what type of item it is, where it's going, and when it's going to arrive. So that is the Excel portion of the dashboard. On the Power BI side, the Power BI side allows me to query the items that are in that Excel spreadsheet very quickly and in different ways. So here, if I want to see all of the purchase requests that are relevant to the projects that we have underway, I can do that by just clicking here. So what's happening here is for project 2315, Power BI is going to this spreadsheet, and wherever it sees 2315, it's taking that line item and then telling me the information from that line item that I want to know. So in this case, I don't want to see everything. I want to see the date it's logged, the supplier, when it's expected, the description, and any notes that I've made. Okay? And this is really helpful when you need to summarize the information quickly and on the spot. So for example, if you're in a meeting and people want updates or stakeholders want updates on the status of certain projects and with regards to the purchasing that's happening within those projects, you can do that quickly and easily here. But you could also change the dimension project to, for example, supplier. I could have a list of all of the suppliers here, and then I could click through the list and see all of the items that we had purchased from that supplier. Or I could change this to maybe a list of the team members, my team members, and I could click through their names and see a list of all of the items they had requested. So it's a really powerful way to quickly and easily summarize the information that is in your purchasing pipeline. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to show you how to build these tools from the ground up. So open up Excel, start a new spreadsheet. All right, and the first thing you want to do is type in all of the column titles. So I'll do that quickly now. Okay, so I've typed out the title of each of the columns. Now, one quick trick you can do to accelerate the typing of dates is you type one date, and then if you drag that out just like this, then it will auto-populate the date chronologically. So you get like your 2, 3, this would be 4, 5, and 6. And if you didn't know, you can double click in between cells to get it to auto size relevant to how much text is inside that cell, right? So here, this is when expected. You can't see all of that. So if you double click, where it gives you the little spacing icon, then it will automatically size it for you. Okay, so I want to skip the weekend, which is the 7th and the 8th, so I'm going to just copy and paste this and change this date to, I guess that would be September 9. Nope, September 9. Okay, once again, just pull that out and you get all of your dates there. All right, so that is all of the column titles. Now the description and the notes area is usually a little bit bigger, so we'll just drag that out like that. And then these items here, I had the text going vertically, so I will very quickly do that and show you how to do that here. So just highlight the column titles that you want the text to go vertical, and then up here you see an icon and you can change that to rotate text up. Okay, I think what we'll do is convert this now to a table. So highlight the first 2 rows, go to Format as a Table, and click on any color you like. And we want to click on My Table Has Headers. Okay, so these are the titles that we've already put in the table. So make sure that's checked and go OK. And I personally like the contrast of black and white. So I typically make the header row on a black background with white text. Okay, next thing is the status row. So we want to have that drop down that's going to change the color, okay, of the row. And to do that, you just need to highlight the cell within which you want the drop down to be located, and then click on Data and Data Validation. Okay, and that's a drop down, and then you click Data Validation again, and I believe it is in here. So under validation criteria, allow, whoops, not date, list. In here, you just list the items you want to appear in your drop down and separate each item with a comma. So we want to see requisition, ordered, PO'd, and other. Okay, and if you hit OK, then you will get that little drop down menu. The only problem is we haven't made it change color yet. So to do that, click on Home and click on Conditional Formatting and click on New Rule. Then you want to click on Use a Formula to determine which cells to format. And then you have this space here, Format Values where this formula is true. Okay, so we want to say if H2 with a $, H2, if this equals requisition, so if requisition is inside of this cell, then we want, I'm clicking on Format here, then we want the color to change to orange and click OK. Okay, and inside the cell, now you can see it's orange, however, it's not applying to the full line. So what you want to do is go back to Conditional Formatting and click on Manage Rules. And this is the rule that we just created. So if H2 is requisition, then change orange, and this applies to H2, but we don't want it to apply to only H2. We want it to apply to the entire row, which is A2, okay, from this side, A2, all the way over to items to return, which is O2. Okay, so then I'm just going to put a colon, which is like saying from this cell to this cell, and then I'm going to put O2 with $, and apply, and then we can see that that row changes orange. Okay, now of course we have to do the same thing so that when you click on the other items, they change to different colors too. So just follow through the same process until all of the different words have been coded appropriately. So now, depending on what you've selected, you get different colors. And if you ever wanted to edit that, just click on Conditional Formatting and go to Manage Rules, and then you can see the rules that you have set up for your table. And so now what you can do is highlight the row, right click, go insert, okay, and give yourself a little bit of space, or even highlight 2 rows and insert, and then copy your functional row over to the new rows in your table. So that's Control C, Control V to copy the rows over. And now you have some blank rows to work with in your table. And I'm going to insert some grid lines just to let me more easily see where the different cells are. So just highlight all the cells where you want grid lines to appear. Go to Home, click on this little icon here, and then you want to click on All Borders. Okay, and there you go. And now you have some nice lines that you can work with. Okay, and just a couple of quick things to help you. So inside of a cell, you can actually drag your text entry field down to make it bigger, and then you can use this sort of like a word processor, and you can skip lines within a cell by holding down Alt and pressing Enter. So let's say I want to make an entry for today. So I'm going to say September 6, confirmed color change, or whatever the item is. And then if you press Enter and then Alt and then Enter, okay, I can skip lines within the cell. And then so let's say there's another item I wanted to update, September 8, supplier requested delaying delivery to September 22, or whatever the item is. So that's how you can skip lines. Okay, and then if you hit Enter without Alt, it just moves you down to the next cell, and you'll still have to just pull this up so that you go back to normal again. You can see it creates a nice spaced out journal for you here, which can be very helpful. The other thing I want to mention is in any column that logs dates, you're going to want to change the format to short date, okay? Because what happens then is when you type out a date, so for example, let's say something is logged for September 2024, and when I hit Enter, then it will automatically convert it to a date. And this is very important because when you go over to Power BI and you want to query things by date, it has to be in a standardized format. You can't have all the dates written differently, otherwise Power BI will get confused and not know which date to put first and which date to put second. So it's very important that these be coded as short date. Okay, I'll now show you how to build the Power BI side of the dashboard. So go into Power BI and hit blank report, and when it finishes loading up, you'll see a screen that looks like this. So you're going to want to import data from Excel, so click on that, and you're going to want to open the requisitions dashboard that we built in Excel, so double click that. All right, so from within the Excel file, you're going to have to select the table that we made. Okay, so in this case it's table 1, and it gives you a bit of a preview here, so you can make sure it's the table that you're hoping to load. And there are some cool things you can do to combine this data with data that you get from your ERP. You can map them together using the PO number, which is unique to each line, and you would do that with the transform data area. But for this video, we're just going to do a very quick and easy table that you can use to query your data with and organize it in different ways. So click on load and wait for it to load. It usually takes a minute or two. Okay, and then from the pane on the right hand side here, you're going to want to choose this icon, which is slicer. So that's the field that will allow you to choose what data type you want to query the information by. Okay, so if you see here over on the right hand side, if I just do this drop down, I will see all of the columns in our table. Down here, let's say we want to query the information by project. Okay, so I'm going to find project and I'm going to drag it into the field column here. And when I do that, you'll see over here on the left, it gives you a list of the projects, and you can toggle them. But right now we're not showing anything, so it doesn't produce anything. I'm just going to remove this blank one by right-clicking and going to exclude. All right, so click outside of your slicer to this open area, and now click Table. Okay, and drag your table to make it larger, and drag it this way too. And I'm going to make it nice and tight, just like this, so we get as much area as we can. And I'm just going to collapse these side areas, give us a bit more space to play with. Okay, now what we want to do in the table, we want to tell Power BI which columns of information we want to include. So we're going to include the date that the purchase request was logged. Okay, so I'm just dragging that over to the column section. We also want to include the supplier. So let's pull this over here too. And you can see as I'm dragging them here, the columns are coming up over here. And it's all live. So if I start clicking, oops, let me make this smaller. If I start clicking through the slicer, you can see it's already pulling up information. Now I want to know some other information. I want to know when each of the items is expected. Okay, so I'm going to drag over when expected, and I'm also going to drag over description, and I'm just going to plunk it down at the bottom here. And I also want to see the notes that I made. So if you remember the journal entries, I'll just find one that actually has a note. Which project has a note? Here we go. So this project 2464 has a few different notes in it. And I just want to maybe make the area a little bit more spaced out so we can see everything a bit more clearly. Okay, and then I'm going to click date logged so that I organize all of the rows by the date that the item was put into the requisitions table. So we're going to do this in reverse chronological order. So these are the latest purchase requests up at the top, and then just moving backwards from there. Now I like to see grids. So if you click your table and then over here in visualizations, in the visualizations pane, click on grid, and we want to see vertical grid lines. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm just going to drop that down, and I want the color of these to be black just to make them a bit easier to see. Okay, and then just to my eye, it's a little bit easier to follow the lines as we go along here. So you can see that if you were in a meeting and needing to report on different projects and what is in the purchasing pipeline for each of those projects, it only takes a few clicks to be able to pull this information out. Now the other cool thing that you could do, so if we click the slicer over here on the left and then we go to the visualizations pane on the right, let's say that we wanted to click through the data by supplier. So I'm going to come over here, okay, click back into the build visual area. I'm going to X out project so it doesn't appear as our field, and I'm going to stick in here supplier. Okay, so now what you see, and I'm just going to drag this out so we got a bit more space. One moment here. I will first make our table a little bit more crunchy and then pull this over too. So what you see now here is a list of all the suppliers that appear in our spreadsheet. And of course, when you get into this list might be hundreds of lines long. So it can be really helpful to help aggregate the information and better summarize it for you. So if I click on Dunder Mifflin, I just put a bunch of fake companies in here. So I can see all of the requisitions that are that were issued to Dunder Mifflin, and same for all of the other suppliers in our spreadsheet. And then just one more example, I could X out supplier and I could put in person, for example. And when I do that, I see all of the people that are on my team, and I can have a look at the different purchase requests that they have given me. And so this can be really helpful especially if people in your team are changing. Maybe somebody leaves the department and someone takes over their role, and they want to have a bit of a history as to what were the suppliers that that particular project manager worked with. In just a few clicks and within a few seconds, you can have that information ready. So that concludes the video. I hope that's helpful and gives you a few ideas. Please let me know what you think of this approach. I'm always looking to grow my skills as well. I'll put a few resources on the screen that I found extremely helpful and that I'm sure you will too. And if you are in the Ottawa area, I'm active in a procurement professionals community. We meet up once a week and just discuss the various challenges that come along with working in purchasing and procurement. And I would love to meet new people in the city that are also working in the same space. Thanks for watching and wishing you a great day.